Hello everyone, I'm Gabe, and today we'll be meeting our legendary trio. But first, let's do a recap. In the last episode, you began your post-game travels around the Paleon Region. You met all of the visiting professors and increased your access code to its maximum. You also found a bunch of strange carvings that showed that a legendary created a trio of fairy types. But before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that I'll be having my very first live stream on Saturday, February 4th at noon Central Time. That's tomorrow, y'all, so I'll see you there for a fun Q&A. Alright, you recall that back on Route 1, inside Plyo Cave, and on Route 13, you had found access gates with large 18s on them. Now it's time to visit those. First up, Route 1. On the other side, you find a peaceful, secluded grotto where you can catch wild Cactamo, Cactolodge, and Ankylotus. I mean, you gotta be able to finish that dex if you didn't pick Cactamo early on. It's a rather pleasant little area, and after some exploring, you come across another legendary shard. You only need 2 more after this one. And waiting in a clearing is the first of a legendary trio. This is also the first because there is decidedly an order to these Pokemon. We'll be calling them the Progress Trio, and they are tied to the rise and fall of civilizations. So, our first form is going to be all about discovery and be loosely based on Prometheus. The other bit of imagery that I wanted to work in was an hourglass, and I found a way to work that right into the little mask-like face pretty easily. The curved lines are subtle enough that it isn't screaming hourglass. And being the first member of our trio and having all of the time ahead of it still, its hourglass is going to have its sand still up at the top. So it gets a cute little forehead marking, little tuft of hair fire, and that'll just be on the upper part of the hourglass. I also knew that I wanted this trio to be fairy types for 2 reasons. One, love the imagery of the Miyazaki Kodama forest spirits, and I wanted this trio to feel a little bit like that. And secondly, there are still a couple unused fairy pairings that we'll be able to knock out with these designs. So, I'm pretty sure you could guess from Prometheus alone, but this will be fairy and fire, which I cannot believe we still haven't got yet. The color palette is pretty straightforward. I mean, I already had an idea of what it was going to be, but it just so happened that the reference image of Prometheus just kind of matched it perfectly too. And for the shiny, I'm not going to lie, I didn't have any cool inspirations. I just wanted them to be punchier and exciting versions of the palette. Alright, let's meet the first of the Progress Trio. This is Promisty, the Discovery Pokemon. Depictions of this curious Pokemon are seen amongst the oldest civilizations. It is often shown presenting fire for the first time. Promisty traveled the world, acting as a muse for early humans. It values discovery and ingenuity above all else, but has returned to the Paleon region as it has sensed potential doom for its home and creator. And its ability is adaptability, so that increases its stab from 1.5 to 2. It's a little cutie, and you go ahead and capture it. For the sake of Pokémon Amber, this would be an instance where if you accidentally knocked it out, you could return and try and catch it again, because, as a reminder, you'll need all 3 of these if you want to wake up the legendary that created them. Flying over to Plyo Cave, you find another access gate and pass through it. After a dark, winding tunnel, you emerge on the east coast of the island in another tranquil, secluded area. This time, you get the opportunity to catch wild Fleetwee, Ovanish, and Flytor. You explore this area and pick up another legendary shard, just 1 more to go, and, like last time, you find a legendary waiting in a calm clearing. So, this trio is about the rise and fall of civilization, so what do you have in the middle? Well, you have stability and order. Our main point of inspiration is going to come from Themis, the Greek god of law and order. You may recognize her more often as that blind lady with the sword and scales, all the justice and whatnot. So she'll be our jumping off point. Now, we're also going to tweak the proportions a bit. Promisty was really just a little kid, but now we have essentially an adult. Going back to the hourglass motif on the mask, all of the sand here is being held in the center of the hourglass, and that's why she gets this kind of banded symbol right in the middle of the mask. Well, the other thing that I definitely glossed over with the first design is how the arms work with this trio. This design shows it a little better, but they don't really have arms. Instead, there's kind of a ribbon that comes down from the underside of the mask, wraps around their backs, and then is essentially an arm on the other side. So overall, silhouette-wise, I want them to look like they're holding a mask up to their face and then have a free thematic hand as well. In this case, what was a torch for Promisty is now a sword of justice. She will, smite you down if you go breaking any rules. And that brings us to the typing. Now, I know that we just recently got a fairy and fighting type in Scarlet and Violet, but when I was initially making this trio, that typing wasn't covered yet. So yeah, we're doing fairy and fighting. And I think the fighting type works really well for, the law and order part. Kind of like the Swords of Justice. All right. Let's meet our second of the trio. Here is Themisti, the Order Pokemon. This stoic Pokemon has been glimpsed throughout the ages whenever a civilization is on the brink of collapse. Themisti was often able to inspire humans to maintain control and order, though its means were often cold and calculated. It has returned to the Paleon region in hopes of assisting its mysterious creator, and its ability is steadfast, so that raises the speed stat each time the Pokemon flinches. Pretty kick butt, and I like that this trio feels, kind of like the Lake Guardians a bit, but if they had a little more personality. Okay, you catch it because, you're awesome, and you hightail it to Route 13. After passing through this final gate, you find a beautiful little lagoon. Wild Sailil, Sliscale, and Spinosaur are splashing about in the water and just waiting for you to catch them. In addition to them, you find the very last legendary shard. Very cool. You could rush back to the Centozone lab and hand them off to Grant, but you know that there's gotta be a final trio member here. And sure enough, you find it standing on a rock, staring out to sea. As you approach, you see that it is scratching markings into a stone. It seems that this was the Pokemon that was leaving all of those pictographic records all over the Paleon region. Very interesting. Downfall of civilization time. How pleasant, am I right? So, who are we going to be dealing with here? Well, this is a lesser-known Greek god, Geras. He is the Greek god of old age. And honestly, he's probably the least important inspiration. Yeah, we want the design to look elderly, like the last of the sand is rushing out of the hourglass. In fact, right off the bat, just look at the mask. Just having the sand down at the bottom of the hourglass, and it's kind of pouring out and becoming this wonderful old man beard. We're also tweaking the pose again. Things get nice and hunched over, and what was previously a torch and a sword is now a cane. I actually initially thought that I would do a play on the, what animals on 4 legs, 2 legs, then 3 riddle, but I just couldn't think of a good way to do Promisty on all 4s, so that got thrown out pretty quick. But I knew that I wanted this final member to have a cute little cane, and with this pose and its short little legs, it ended up being the most grounded of the 3. Speaking of being grounded, you know what other typing hasn't been paired with Fairy yet? Yep, it's the ground type. Now, this connection is maybe not as strong as the other 2, but the hourglass imagery along with, things crumbling to dust are enough for me to justify the Fairy and ground type. A few splotchy markings on the body help tie the typing in a little bit too, and these colors are pretty intentionally muted, being like a faded old man, but they work for the ground type too. All right, let's wrap up our trio with Grimisty, the Downfall Pokemon. Sightings of this contemplative Pokemon are often interpreted as a sign of approaching ruin. While Grimmisty often accompanies the downfall of a civilization, it also encourages the documentation and passing down of knowledge. Strange carvings across the Paleon region appear to be Grimmisty recounting its past, and its ability is Aftermath, since it's the end of civilization, and that means if a Pokemon knocks it out, it will lose a fourth of its HP. Yeah, it's a sweet old man who lets you know that it's just all gonna come crashing down around you. So, of course, you catch it. Good work, you nerd. But what do you think? What do you think of Grimmisty, Thimisty, and Primisty? Which one of them is your favorite? I would love to hear your thoughts about this legendary trio down in the comments below. Well, you've got all of the legendary shards that you need to return to Grant in the underwater lab, and this new fairy-type trio should be able to wake the dormant legendary in Ginkgo's office. But you'll have to take care of that in the next episode. But before we go, just another reminder, I'll be having my very first live stream tomorrow, Saturday, February 4th at noon Central Time. So I hope to see you there for a Q&A. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. We'll be meeting the 2-box legendaries in the next episode, so let me know if you have any guesses as to what they could be. Alright, see you later, nerds!